promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is NEWSLINK. Here are the top stories. Niger's Prime Minister Lamin Zain welcomes a Malian delegation to discuss security cooperation amid the alleged increase in threat of invasion. The Economic Community of West African States deploys long-term election observers to Liberia ahead of the October 10 polls. The minority in Ghana's parliament again postponed street protest to demand the resignation of the central bank governor.
It's very clear to us that the police are just doing everything to trample on our rights as Ghanaians, as representatives of the people of Ghana, and especially our right guaranteed in this constitution to protest. This police will not work with us.
And lawmakers in the Gambia call for the annulment of the law prohibiting female genital mutilation in the country.
We will repel with all forces. So therefore, I task myself and all members to come with a private member bill to police this law outright, immediately, to make sure our people are adhered to.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Liberia, the Gambia and Ghana. Our first story takes us to Niger, where the office of the military-appointed head of government, Ali Mohamed Lamin Zain, played host to a delegation from Bamako. The visit by Mali's head of diplomacy, Abdoulaye Diop, came days after the ruling junta in Niger accused France of actively planning to carry out an attack. Although these officials met late Monday in Niamey, as reported by state media, nothing is known about the discussions. Experts, however, suggest that on the menu could have been issues of economic and security cooperation between Bamako and Niamey. The Sahelian countries share a long border where Al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist groups are active. But regardless of the talks, Mali has severally flagged its support for Niger and warned that any military use of force in the country is an act of war. We remain in the Sahel because Mali pretty much on Monday dispatched emissaries to neighboring states, including Burkina Faso. Arriving in Ouagadougou to deliver President Assimi Goïta's message was the Malian Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, Lieutenant Colonel Abdoulaye Maiga. The Burkinabe interim president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, according to the presidency, warmly welcomed the representative. As in Niger, however, specified of the closed-door meetings are undisclosed. But Colonel Maiga, speaking to the press, had this to say.
We were carrying a message from President Assimi Goïta to his brother Ibrahim Traoré. Mali and Burkina Faso share common challenges in terms of security, as well as socio-political and economic issues. This calls for ongoing dialogue. We have, of course, passed on President Assimi Goïta's message, and in return, President Traoré has given us wise advice on how to stay the course and rise to the challenges facing us for the good of our people.
Malian Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, Colonel Abdoulaye Maiga, speaking there. In Mali, tension continues to flare between the ex-rebels of the Coordination of Azawad Movement and the Malian authorities in the north of the country. Both parties accuse each other of violating the ceasefire signed in 2014. The Permanent Strategic Framework, which brings together the groups that signed the peace agreement, says it is ready to define to defend itself militarily if the army attacks. Martisi brings more details in this report.
In a press release, the CSP, a permanent strategic framework, called on civilians to stay away from military installations and sites. The Coordination des Mouvements de l'Azawad, which has always accused the Malian army of targeting its positions, says it is now ready to defend itself militarily against any assault. Baba Dakono is the executive secretary of Citizens Observatory on Governance and Security.
There has been a succession of events and verbal exchanges between the ex-rebellion, the signatory of the peace agreement, and the government, going back a few months. It's also important to remember that for over a year now, there has been no meeting between the committee responsible for monitoring the agreement, which in fact foreshadowed difficulties in implementing this document, which was signed in 2015.
Clément Dembélé, president of the Platform Against Corruption and Unemployment in Mali, believes that the solution to the conflict between the two parties can only come from the implementation of the Algiers peace agreement. In mid-August, tensions escalated when the Malian army tried to take control of the camp that the MINUSMA had retroceded to Ber. Violent clashes had ensued between the army and the CMA. The MSA, an armed group belonging to the framework, dissociated itself from the CMA statement and called for dialogue. Speaking on national television on Sunday, General Aluboy Jara, Chief Staff of the Air Force, made no comment on the CSP statement.
Martisi reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
Away from the Sahel, the regional bloc ECOWAS on Monday approved deployment of 15 long-term election observers to Liberia. The team, among other things, will monitor key stages in the electoral process leading up to the country's general elections on October 10. Dr. Umar Ali Toure, president of the ECOWAS Commission, said the deployment is consistent with the organization's protocol on good governance. Abdullahi Hassan tells us more.
ECOWAS, in a statement on its website, cited the deployment as consistent with provisions of Articles 12 to 14 of the body's 2001 Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance and Assistance to Member States holding elections. The long-term observation mission is headed by Serene Mamadou Ka, acting head of the Electoral Assistance Division, and comprises experts in election administration, gender and civil society, constitutional law, security, and the media. According to ECOWAS, the mission will be in the country until 15 October 2023 to observe the electoral processes and also serve as an early warning mechanism for preventive diplomacy. The electoral experts during their stay will hold working sessions with various stakeholders, including the National Elections Commission, government, civil society organizations, the media, security agencies, as well as political parties and candidates. The consultations are geared toward ensuring a smooth electoral process. Some 2.4 million registered voters among Liberia's estimated population of 5.4 million will elect a new president, 15 senators and 73 members of the House of Representatives. The ECOWAS observers will be reinforced on 3rd October by 80 of their short-time colleagues to be chaired by Professor Atahiru Jega, former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria.
Abdullahi Hassan filed that report. We remain in Liberia as the European Union Election Mission begins the dispatch of the first set of 20 long-term election observers. This batch, comprising data analysts, political, legal, and social media experts, will be spread across the 15 counties of the country. Addressing a conference in Monrovia, the EU Deputy Chief Observer, Jarek Domanski, reiterated the bloc's commitment to ensuring a credible process on voting day.
The EU Election Observation Mission will assess the election based on international and regional standards and commitments that Liberia has disposed, as well as the national law. So it will focus on the entire electoral process, not only on the election day, but we will cover the campaign, we will cover the election administration, the legal aspects, the media and social media aspects. And we have experts who will be monitoring all these aspects. The international experts accompanied by local experts who will help us in this endeavor. And they will be observing the electoral process in all 15 counties of Liberia. They will talk to the local population, to all the stakeholders of this electoral process. We will have 40 observers, short-term observers, so-called. Then we will have also 7 members of the European Parliament who will join.
EU's Deputy Chief Election Observer, Jarek Domanski, speaking there. In Ghana, the minority in parliament has for the second time suspended its planned protest against the central bank governor and his deputies. The decision follows a disagreement with the police service over some modalities of the protest. From Accra, WADR's Atiwin and Bilalosin reports.
The latest postponement is the second time the intended protest has suffered such a blow. Last week, the police service secured an injunction against the protesters to change the route of the street protest. The demonstration is to demand the resignation of Dr. Ernest Addison, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, and his deputies over the alleged mismanagement of the central bank, which recorded a loss of $5.3 billion and negative equity of $444 million in 2022. Reacting to the latest postponement of the protest, a member of parliament with the minority side, Emmanuel Ama Kofi Bua, says the police have shown bad faith and are determined to stop them from protesting.
It's very clear to us that the police are just doing everything to trample on our rights as Ghanaians, as representatives of the people of Ghana, and especially our right guaranteed in this constitution to protest. These police will not work with us. They are not ready to even listen to us. They are not ready to compromise with us.
Mahama Yariga, a lawyer and minority member of parliament, has however indicated that after some consultation, the march will now go on the 3rd of October.
Our team decided that a day after the end of the limited registration exercise will afford our team and supporters, organizers, and structures the time and space to organize a well-attended march to demand the resignation of the governor and his deputies.
Reporting for NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
You're listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Niger's Prime Minister Lamine Zain welcomes a Malian delegation to discuss security cooperation amid the alleged increase in threat of invasion. The Economic Community of West African States deploys long-term election observers to Liberia ahead of the October 10 polls. The minority in Ghana's parliament again postponed street protests to demand the resignation of the central bank governor, and lawmakers in the Gambia call for the annulment of the law prohibiting female genital mutilation in the country. Still ahead is the press review, guest interview, and sports update. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
National Assembly members of the Gambia have called for the annulment of the law prohibiting female genital mutilation, FGM, in the country. The lawmakers, during a debate on the matter on Monday, held that the law opposes the cultural and religious beliefs of the Gambian people. Enacted by former President Yahya Jammeh in 2015, the law criminalizes the practice and prescribes a range of punishments. As Sankule Janko in Banjul reports, the reaction follows the prosecution of 3 women who reportedly violated the law.
None of the speakers supported the law during the debate as they strongly opposed the anti-FGM law. They argue that those who do not wish to practice female circumcision should be respected, while those bent on practicing it should not be prosecuted for their cultural and religious beliefs. Still on the floor of the House, all the female lawmakers who spoke asked for the law to be repealed.
My people said they don't like the idea of banning female genital mutilation.
Whoever feel like it's your right and you're religious to do it, perform it. You cannot impose something which people don't accord with it and they don't want to absorb it. I'm calling on any honorable member to come up with a private member bill. We repeal this.
In 2015, former President Jammeh made a pronouncement to ban FGM, and this was followed by an enactment of the legislation to criminalize the practice. However, members of the parliament, including the member for Fonyi Councillor and Mame Jiba, a loyal supporter of Jammeh, want the law to be annulled.
When you tamper with your Islamic and cultural aspect, we will repel with all forces. So therefore, I tax myself and all members to come with a private member bill to police this law outright, immediately to make sure our people are adhered to.
The law on female genital mutilation prohibits the practice, and if found guilty, one could either serve a 3-year jail term or be fined $50,000. All the lawmakers who took part in the debate are of the view that the Gambian people were not consulted before the enactment of the anti-FGM law. Thus, it does not represent their wishes and aspirations. As the development went viral, an anti-FGM advocate, Jaha Mari Dukure, via tweet claims the National Assembly members want to reverse the law because they do not want to lock up their mothers and sisters. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankula Janko reporting from Banjul.
Now, the Togolese government has secured 23 billion CFA funds or 35 million euros to speed up state efforts to tackle the impact of global warming. The financing was approved by the French Development Agency, AFD. Hard hit by climate change, Togo's crisis particularly affects its marine front, causing erosion along its Atlantic coastal line. More details with Oge Obierica.
The Togolese government says the financing approval is a significant boost in restoring the country's marine line. The 35 million euros to be injected in the form of a loan is intended to support the West African Coastal Zone Resilience Investment Project supported by the World Bank. The agreement signed last Friday in the nation's capital, Lomé, was attended by key players, including the Minister for the Economy and Finance, Sani Yaya, and his counterpart from the Ministry of Environment, Foli Bazi Katari. Others are the French ambassador to Togo, Augustin Favreau, and the director of AFDB in Togo, Zolika Bouabdallah. The financial support from the French Development Agency is part of an ambitious project to protect a 7-kilometer stretch of the Togolese coastline between Bojome and Agbodrafo in the southern region. However, AFDB is not the only partner involved in this crucial mission. Sources say a few days earlier, a similar agreement was signed by Invest International, a Dutch company which promised 16 billion CFA francs additional funding. Togo hopes to utilize the extra financing to strengthen the nation's capacity to meet the challenges of coastal erosion. According to the UN, more than 1,000 villagers with precarious houses on the coastline will soon be displaced.
Ogiobi Erika with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Here is Darlington Popper in Monrovia with the major headlines from the Liberian dailies.
For this edition of Press Review, we have with us 3 newspapers: the Hot Pepper newspaper, the Front Page Africa newspaper, and the New Dawn newspaper. We will begin a review process with the Hot Pepper newspaper. Bouacar can't rescue anything in this country, who is saying that President George Weah descends on UP's standard barrier. See the photograph of President George Weah in a campaign mood here on the front page of the Hot Pepper newspaper. CPP donates 1.8 million assistance to Grand Cape Mount County flood victims. That's the collaborating political parties. On the back page of the Hot Pepper newspaper is all promotion here for President George Weah. The front page Africa newspaper is up for review. Cheap addictive drug, and we see the photograph of the Roberts International Airport. A security guy is in a surprising turn of events. The boxes confiscated during an attempt to smuggle them out of the Roberts International Airport recently through an authorized gate by the airport chief of security have now been officially declared as Moringa tea by airport authorities in the presence of customs and joint security personnel. Still on the front page Africa newspaper, we are dual divided over born legislative seats. No fragility in Liberia. Foreign Minister Kimbiya assures European Union election observers of peaceful and credible elections. On the back page of the front page Africa newspaper is all about sports. The New Dawn newspaper is now our final stop. On the front page of the New Dawn newspaper, UP playing double standard with PYJ. Weah tells voters as he takes jazz at Bouacar. Thousands celebrate Speaker's 62nd birthday in Plibo. On the back page of the New Dawn newspaper, Bapolu citizens reaffirm support to Cummins. We will leave it right there. The rest of the articles on the back page of the New Dawn newspaper are all promotion and advertisements for the ruling coalition for democratic change. On that note, that is how I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. Thank you so much for following Press Review, and bye-bye.
That was Darlington Popper with the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest interview takes us to a discussion in Liberia about the recent approval by the regional bloc ECOWAS for the deployment of 15 long-term election observers. This team's primary role is to oversee critical phases of the electoral process leading up to Liberia's general elections scheduled for October 10. The European Union Election Mission has also initiated the deployment of the first set of 20 long-term election observers. This initial group comprises experts in data analysis, politics, law, and social media, and they will be distributed across all 15 counties in the country. However, the presence of election observers, both from regional and international organizations over the years, has raised questions about why electoral irregularities persist. To engage in a meaningful discussion, we have Anderson Miamin, a representative from the Liberia Center for Transparency.
I think it is a welcoming development, especially so that this election is being managed entirely by Liberians. And of course, we have an opportunity here to tell the world that we have the capacity and what it takes to plan and execute transparent, fair, and independent election. So yes, the coming in of our partners to monitor the process is extremely important, and we hope that they use the desired result at the end.
Very well. All right. When an election is approaching, both regional and international organizations send observers to the countries conducting the elections. So what really is the challenge that despite the presence of these bodies, cases of irregularities are recorded?
Many reasons are responsible, but what I can say in summary is the fact that the monitoring processes have not been robust enough, especially in those countries where there have been post-election violence or there have been fraud and other manipulative processes in those elections. So the fact that we will have elections in different parts of the region and thereafter we hear about or read about fraud assault and other unbecoming incidences, it means we have a lot more to do. The partners have a lot more to do. And I think at some point we talked about elections being a process and not an event. And that throughout the entirety of the planning process, from the start up to the end, there has to be transparency, accountability, integrity. There has to be monitoring.
Very well. So finally, before I let go of you, as a librarian, not just an ordinary librarian, but somebody who belongs to an organization that believes in transparency. So per your assessment, judging from the events that happened and the current situation in Liberia, do you think the 2023 general elections will be free and fair per your assessment of events?
We have no doubt. We at this point want to say that we have confidence in the Elections Commission. But of course, human beings change. Situations make people to change over time. So that is why, even with the confidence we have in the electoral process and the partners that are engaging with the process, we need to be more vigilant. We need to be proactive. We need to continue to engage with the process so that the wrong things do not happen. So you can still have confidence in the process, but then you still do the needful in terms of monitoring scrupulously, so that if unscrupulous individuals want to manipulate processes, they can be prevented from doing so. So yes, confidence we have in the system. There have been issues, of course, that we've talked about in the other interviews, but we believe that generally we are on track to hold these elections. But what we can say is that even with the confidence we have in the electoral body, we believe that the necessary mechanisms have to be put into place, including very independent and vigilant monitoring of the process by local observers and international observers, as well as citizens and civil society, so that at the end of the day, the results that come out are results that we will have confidence in.
Anderson Miamen is a representative from the Liberia Center for Transparency. Up next is Sports with Sankule Janko.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Guinea-Bissau concluded their Group A campaign with a 2-1 win over Sierra Leone at the start to 24 September in Bissau to put the icing on the cake on their qualification to the next year's Continental Showpiece. It has been reported. The Judos have already secured qualification, but they played against a spirited Sierra Leone side that was looking to spoil the party. The Leone Stars took the lead just 6 minutes into the match when Amadou Bakayoko scored a brilliant goal after a superb teamwork to the delight of the traveling fans. But Guinea-Bissau found their rhythm as they grew into the match before taking control of the proceedings. They broke the deadlock and leveled the scores 10 minutes before halftime, courtesy of a Nito Gomez strike. The Judos continue from where they left off and deservedly added their second 3 minutes into the second half, thanks to a goal scored by Francolino Ju. Sierra Leone, who failed to secure qualification to the AFCON, launched more attacks but could not really break the last line of defense. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at WADR News. We are on Facebook at West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.